loves, and welcome to Shots of Serenity, where you can find dope conversations and a peace of mind. This podcast is not meant to be a replacement for counseling or psychotherapy. I encourage each and every one of you to seek out a licensed helping professional as you see fit. This podcast was established as a safe space to continue the conversation of mental health and all of its manifestations. Now, let's get into it. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Shots of Serenity podcast. I am your host, Jasmine St. John, and this is a beautiful space to land where we love to explore ways to welcome peace and love into our lives through mindfulness, soul care, and self-exploration. So today's guest is Miss Erykah Tharpe, an inspiring school leader, creative visionary, and the founder of THEJOURN.E. Erykah currently serves as Dean of Students, where she leads with heart, structure, and an unwavering commitment to creating safe, supportive spaces for students to grow and succeed. Her journey is as rich and layered as the lives she's touched. From her early work in the nonprofit sector to her time as a clinical mental health therapist, Erykah has always been rooted in service. She later stepped into an associate director role, leading teams and programming with a focus on youth development, before transitioning into school leadership, where she now blends all of that experience into one system. But Erykah is also a creative, someone who doesn't just protect her peace, but turns it into something tangible and healing for others. That spirit lives fully in her passion project, The Sweetest Journey. It's more than a brand, it's a soft landing space, a place where wellness meets creativity, journaling meets joy, and healing shows up in the form of words, reflection, and the occasional handcrafted sweet treat. I really enjoyed this conversation, especially as we are entering the holidays and transitioning into the new year. I think that this conversation was very freeing for anyone that feels stuck or obligated to show up a certain way, especially in the workspace, in the educational space. So tune in, enjoy, and let's get into the conversation. Hello, love. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. We were just talking about it very briefly, but when I've had a personal interaction with the guest, I kind of like to give a little story on the guest. At the beginning, I was asking you if you remember how we even connected, and we kind of talked about our school we went to, shout out to Florida State, and kind of just like our experience there. And funny enough, we were kind of, enjoying our best lives. I don't even remember what the event was, and it was very much giving girl coded in the club. We were lit, we were having a good time. And I think some way, I don't know if just the vibes were kind of connecting, and either one of us either like gave each other a compliment, and then we like shared social media, and I was like, oh, I have like a podcast I would love for you to be on. And mind you, that was years ago. I believe in alignment. Time needs to happen, because since then we both graduated, went to grad school, graduated that, been in our careers. And so I really appreciate you being here with me, Miss Erykah.
I'm excited.
Yes. And we like to start every episode with asking, how are you genuinely doing? I know we kind of checked in at the beginning, but like, what comes up for you? How are you feeling in the season?
Just right now, with everything's going on in the world, whether it's like professionally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, I would say better than, I could have asked for. Like I'm living, I'm breathing, like I said, like I'm healthy. It's funny because like we talk about grad school and we talk about, like what things look like now. And I wouldn't imagine, like me reliving on my own now in an own apartment, in a city. Located in Tampa now. So I would say overall, like my well-being is actually better than I can ask for.
Yeah. And I love that for you, especially because as you mentioned, we kind of touch bases on where it started and where it is. And I think we'll get into it as we get into this conversation. All pun intended, the journey is important, right? Like that's your business, that's your space, that's your offering. And in the moment where you're in school, it's kind of just like, okay, they tell you to graduate, you get a job, all is well, peaches and cream. But that's not really the case. Like you are still navigating life, navigating different life transitions, understanding yourself while still living in this world. And so I think it's such a beautiful blessing that we can kind of talk about that moment, those moments of having fun, enjoying ourselves. And that was suffice and it resonated in that time period. Not saying that a little turn up in a moment of fun is not going to happen now, but being able to be there and to be building the foundation for our careers, I think is very, very beautiful. And I kind of want to start there. Can you share your journey on becoming a social worker? Like how and why did that even happen?
Yeah. So in the beginning, graduated high school in 2016. I had like all of these things that I was going to do, what I wanted to become. I still do think I'm going to become YouTube famous. Like one day, I could work for myself, some sort. It's in the works. So I don't know how, but it's going to happen.
You will.
It's so funny because I went back to like my high school and was speaking on the panel. I was like, I thought I was going to become like a famous, YouTube content creator. But
yeah, girl, we just getting started. You will.
So I went through multiple majors. Like I thought I was going to do engineering. I thought I was going to do nursing. Like it wasn't until like maybe like sophomore, junior year where I was like, okay, I really need to hone in, like what am I good at? Like what is my legacy? Like I don't even know at that time, I don't even know what a legacy was supposed to look like, in college. So I started going through the motions. I started going through the class. I'm like, nope, this is boring. I don't like it. One of my best classes that I had was in economics. Mm-hmm. And I love that professor. Like he used to wear suits all the time. And then one day he came in like short sleeve and like short pants, tatted up. And I was like, yes, this is my jam. This is my vibe. So I started doing like economic stuff. And then that's what led me to finding social work, surprisingly. Mm-hmm. So I went to the department, I spoke to the advisor, and she was like, well, you can do both. You seem like you want to do like entrepreneur things like that. So that's why I started that. So I got accepted into the program. And then I started pretty much finding, I guess, my route and what type of social worker I wanted to be. And I'm still trying to figure that out. Like I've changed my mindset so many times about like what social work is to me. Mm-hmm. Not to anybody else. There's a lot of pages out there, not to what they're saying, but to me. And from my perspective, it looks totally different from, the other pages that I follow, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, maybe let's start there. What is social work? Because I remember in school going through like the different ways to navigate like as a helping professional, whether it's a social worker, mental health counselor, marriage and family counselor, etc. And although it seems like we should be so beyond it, I think that there's still that stigma that like social workers take people's kids. Like although we're in 2025 and it's so much more of a vast like industry, and there's so much more than that, and that's a myth. How would you describe social work?
This is gonna sound like a little cliche. Mm-hmm. It's a journey, right? Like in anything that you do, I feel like it's lessons learned. Like I pour into myself the way I would pour into anything that I'm tasked with. And I like, yes, it has something to do with the passion that you carry and like the people that you meet. But overall, I feel like your personal journey routes you to what things may look like for other people, what things that you've been through that they have not been through, and vice versa. I don't think it's like they have this now, like it's a hardcore definition about this is exactly what you have to do as a social worker. This is that you need to follow X, Y, and Z. You need to be like this. Yes, people out there can be the best social work that they can be. They have no license, like I think it just ultimately depends. And yes, eventually, I think you do need to get to that point where you are licensed and where you do have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree to call yourself a social worker. But I think it's also just offering that support. Like people want to do like these bigger and grandiose things, but I think it starts like with the little things that truly matter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's an interesting perspective, because when I kind of like do referrals for different like case management or like TCMs or different like social workers for different clients' needs, I kind of describe those social workers and how they work, because obviously we'll get into it. Every social worker does not do the same thing. And so I kind of describe them, and I don't know if this is good or not, but like the moms of the helping profession, because it just seems, again, for more so TCMs, which is like targeted case managers, they know everything. Like they got a resource for everything. I didn't even know the library had this option. I didn't even know that I can fix this on my food stamps or get X, Y, and Z. And so from my experience, and thankfully I've had great experiences with some of the social workers and case managers that I work with. And I feel like they always have the answer. And if they don't have the answer, they're going to go out and get it and help figure out a support for the client. And so I love that you kind of like highlighted, it's not just one task, but it's being in support and being a part of that person's journey, whatever that looks like. If it is housing, if it is food, if it is, being able to have a safe space. So I really appreciate that. I'm wondering, how did you merge your master's in social work to professional work for advocacy, your personal journey? You mentioned like content, you already create some lifestyle content, some like tips and tricks for aspiring social workers. So how did you integrate those things?
Yes. So I remember, I think there was like a hurricane and like TikTok had just started and everybody had TikTok, and I wasn't on TikTok at the moment, and this is going to sound like really bad, but there was like a Medea sound and it was like, I'm about to go to jail, y'all. And then I was like, a day in life as a social worker, and I did like this meme in the sound, and it went, I was like, oh my goodness, this is not the way I want to portray social work, like on social media there's like enough going on. So that sound went viral. And then like from there, social work has been like the core, like the core to me. People write me all the time on, TikTok, ask me about like, how did I do this and how to do that? And I say that because that moment right there is what led me to know, like, this is the core for Erykah. Like, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So I transitioned to that. I went through my master's program. COVID came. I graduated in 2020. So that's when COVID hit. And then I started my program that August. So it was like virtually. And then I graduated from my program, and then I started working. I started doing nonprofits. I started nonprofits first. And then like I was doing my internship hours, become licensed. I was like, this is too much. I've stopped the start of that process so many times, and I'm still not finished. Then after that, I was associate director of a YMCA here in Tampa. And then I was like, okay, let me go back. Let me do school counseling. So I started school counseling for a couple of years. That's how I entered the school setting. And then when this position became deemed available, I applied, I was offered a position. So that's a little bit how things transpired for me in the beginning. And then I created the journey. I literally remember writing down names. I'm like, what is catchy? What is real life? Erykah, what is social work? What is personal, but also like informational? And I remember when I was writing, I was like, no, I don't want to have my name in it. I don't want to have social work in it, because like that can change, I could go back to school and do something totally different. And then I was literally writing, and I was like, journey, I was like, oh my God, it has an E. And that's when I didn't want a Y. And then like, that's when I was writing different things. And it didn't take me long. Like sometimes you ponder on names, and as soon as I put the journey, and I was like, I need a dot right here for Erykah. And now when I tell people that, they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize. And I'm like, yes, that's how it all came about. So I love it. I feel like it's different for me. A lot of people, I mean, you spell it how you spell it, but like most people are used to it with the Y. And I feel like it's just very fitting to what I do, what I create, and what I share out to my different platforms.
Yeah. How did you have, and this is assumption, right? Like, how do you have a level of confidence to be able to shift and pivot in your career choice? Because that can seem very scary. And a lot of times, like in school, we're told, hey, what is this one thing you want to do for the rest of your life? And then you spend a good amount of your life realizing that you're not just one thing, like you're so multifaceted. But that can be difficult when you're trying to meet your basic needs as well as gain the wisdom and education. So, like, how did you sound like you had so much like freedom in changing and evolving. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. And I don't want to make something up because I think just reframing who you are, that comes with, like trying different things, right? So, and it's fun because I just posted on my page, like things I will not do as an interviewee. Like, I'm not recording a video. I'm not committed, like doing an assignment for you. And I think for me and who I am, like, I know that I could be good at a lot of things. And I think like when I see something, like for me, like integrity is like the biggest thing to me. Like it's not when somebody's looking right. It's like what you're doing when
no one's looking.
And I think that's for me the same thing with jobs. And if I see something that I know that is not, like code of conduct, not saying that I'm going to every job, oh my God, they didn't do X, Y, and Z. But when it gets to a point where I'm like, this ain't it, I gotta switch, And that just also goes along with my personal life, like my walk with Christ. Not to say that it's where I want it to be, but like you got to relieve certain things in your life when you're trying to get somewhere. And I will also say, lean on your why, lean on your passion. Is this what you actually want to do, or are you just putting up with it? And people laugh at me, but I say I do everything in twos. I feel like I am multifaceted and multi-passionate about several different things. And staying at a job for like 10 or 12 years, that to me, that does nothing if I want to move somewhere. If I want to, what if I wanted to become an executive director? I can't stay a program manager forever with one company, forever. So I think the more you grow, the more you learn about just like requirements and expectations that needs to get you to that next level. And also that goes back into networking. I started like very young in college. Like I was working in the president's box. I was working at Westcott, like just making those connections and seeing how honestly like people talk in those settings is something that I grasped, I feel like at an early age. But I will say like when I'm on a hunt to find a new job, I'm on a hunt. Like I'm changing. I am sending emails, writing people on LinkedIn. I don't care if I don't know you. And it's weird because like some people will leave you on red, some people will reply, some people will give you a reference and some people won't. But it's all about a part of like how you want to navigate and, just get to that next level and how much you are really to hustle, because it's a competition up there, honestly, at the end of the day. And everybody's fueling, for themselves.
Girl, I hope that frees someone, because the freedom that I just hear from you expressing that you can still have your basic needs and not damn near have to sell your soul or compromise your integrity for some compensation or perceived prestige or level of power or a level of status for a job. And I feel like that's easy to say, but very difficult for people. Like you're saying, hey, I know what I bring to the table. I know what I need. And if it's going to compromise my well-being, if it's going to compromise, my integrity, my mental health, my emotional health, my time freedom, then I'm okay with letting it go. And a lot of people don't have that freedom. They feel stuck and they feel like they have to or they're obligated. And I get it, right? We do need our basic needs met. We do need to do what we got to do for our finances. And by having that perspective allows you to be like in alignment and where God wants you to be. Because if it's for you, it's going to be yours regardless. If you need to leave, you're going to leave regardless. If you need to stay, you will stay regardless. And so I hope that there's someone listening that allows themselves to see how they can exercise their freedom in their career and their job choices, because it seems secure, but it's not at all, no matter how you flip it.
Yeah. So I will also say like learn to like accept like the learning curve, right? The confidence thing is not always about like knowing everything right away. It's just about like also trusting yourself in those certain areas to figure things out as you go, because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm figuring out like what works for me.
And so for people that maybe are a little bit more practical, what would that look like if you are kind of like navigating the space where you don't want to be at this job, but you know that there's something better for you out there, but you're kind of like battling the shoulda, coulda, wouldas? What is maybe like a practice for you that you're like, I'm not going to get caught up in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I'm just going to go for it. Or is that the practice? Like, I'm going for it.
Yeah. I think it also depends on like, you have to figure out like, what are your options? We have more than one trait, you know? So whether that's, being where you are at the moment, and sometimes like, unfortunately, you do have to sacrifice of maybe possibly being at that job. And it's so funny because, like people always say like, I can't change yesterday, but I can shape tomorrow. So thinking about that, and it's like, what did I do yesterday that didn't get me to where I need to be? Or like, why am I so upset at this job? Like, yes, I want to leave, but like, I feel like I'm stuck here. Like, why do you feel that way? A lot of people are confident, like within their roles currently, and they just get stuck. Why do you feel stuck? What do you feel like you owe to a company that much that you can't? And granted, yes, like things happen, like kids, marriages, divorces, like, yes, all those factors happen, but like in so many ways, it is about just going for it. It is about like just giving yourself grace and not trying to pressure yourself. It's the tiny actions that matter. So like whether that's you applying to a job one day at a time. I know some people just like, no, I need to block out 4 hours. I'm like, I'm not blocking out 4 hours. Just, how draining that is. And I think it also just goes back to like using your time wisely. Everything does not have to be, somebody asked me, I can't remember what they asked me, but they were asking me like, does your job have to be your passion? And I was like, that's a really good question. And for me, it does not have to be. Like, I want to break into marketing, but marketing is something that I like. But I will still, run my page, as is. So I think about, instead of judging yourself of not doing it sooner, celebrate like what you are currently doing, like at that moment.
Yeah, yeah. Fair. So with all these different things that you're responsible for, how do you maintain your emotional wellness? Like, how do you sustain your wellness in such a demanding job?
That's a good question. I'm not where I was, how I am like currently, like very outgoing, I'm just going to go explore the world, content, I don't care if people are looking at me. I want to back up a little bit. In 25? I graduated in 2021. I went through like a breakup. And we were like living together. I was like, I'm going to get married. They moved to Tampa. And then like we broke up. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is life? And this just happened like, we're in 2025, 2021. That's not, not that far apart. So I had to like relearn a lot of things. I had to like relearn Erykah. I had to relearn the single Erykah. I had to relearn like living on my own and how that looks. So at the time, like my well-being was not the best. And that was when I was also like doing my hours. So imagine me going through what I'm going through and also trying to like have clients one-on-one. So that was very tough. So that moves me to like your question about like, how's my well-being. I was seeing a therapist. A therapist, what a therapist is, I find that, people always say that, like, so after that happened, I did get a therapist, which was very helpful. And I still talk to her to this day. Now I'm like on like monthly check-ins, which is, I think is still good to have. But at that time, it was very hard. I don't want to say, I was low, but like some people like I was low, like I was depressed. I think circling back, like to remember like why I started my blog, why I started getting into social work, but also what made me me. Like, was I dependent on somebody? Like, why do I feel the way I feel about like this breakup? Obviously, because like, when you're with someone, like you you're with them for the long haul. We were living together, so I think that's what made things a little harder. And we're also young. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like the dating world sucks. Like, nope, like nobody, nobody has a job. Everybody has kids. And I'm like, all this stuff like just kept hitting me at once. And then like I had to move back in with my parents. And I'm like, 5 o'clock, they got the blender going. I'm like, this is too much. So I really had to get myself together. And that was a challenging moment, like just for my well-being and also in my career, like I'm going to work, I'm sluggish, like I don't feel 100%, but I'm still trying to make it. And then like 2024, I kind of like shifted, got my mind together, started, working on my blog. I also expanded from my blog to like my new business, which is the Swedish Journey, which is sweets and treats for, like party, moments. But currently right now, I feel like I am using my time more wisely, like after work. Like some days after work, I used to just come and just lay on the couch, not doing nothing, like just on TikTok, just on social media. And I think there's a difference of the way you're on social media. Like sometimes I scroll for inspiration. Sometimes I scroll like, how can I tailor this to my page? But prior to that, I was just on there, just listening to messages, looking at certain pages. And I unfollowed like a couple of pages that like just didn't align with like where I needed to be, feeding into all the unnecessary things. So now I am in therapy, still like checking in. I am back in the gym. So I try to go to the gym at least 3 times a day or run, and also eating healthier.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just like my main thing. But a lot of people see that, oh my God, like your page, like is so beautiful. All of this. I never shared the breakup on my page because I just feel like that's not what that's for. I'll probably do like a slide about it, or like once if I revamp again, things like that. But like it took some time. It took some time to get back into blogging, get back into like things that I love. But ultimately, I think just using my time wisely and connecting with people who like just aligns like that. Well, hey girl, like you look down, or hey girl, you haven't been posting. Hey, I'm just checking in. But it doesn't have to always be like, hey girl, let's go to dinner and sit down and spend like $200 on dinner. So I think just also the balance too as well.
Yeah. I'm hearing you say that you allowed yourself to go through it, like not try to, fast pace or speed up the process. Like it's uncomfortable and you allowed yourself to be uncomfortable, although it probably didn't feel the best. You leaned on your levels of support, even if that looks like going home and being supported, saving, doing what you got to do. I feel like a lot of times people see that as a stigma, as quote unquote going backwards, even if it's in a relationship or going back to school. And that's really not the case. It is what is best for you in the moment to get you to where you need to be. And then you mentioned also getting support by your therapist, getting support by your friends, your community in the way that you needed, getting your mental health and your physical health together. And so that's fair. I think a lot of times people run away. We're going to keep using it and plug in the journey, but like the journey and the work, like a lot of times people just want to find 5 tips to get over a breakup and kind of move from there. And that's not really how it works, or 5 tips to go from grad school to in your career. And we all have different experiences that need to be had. We all have different lessons to learn. And you have to move through it. Like you can't go around it. You can't go underneath. You can't go on top of it, but you have to go through it. And shout out to you for allowing yourself to go through it.
I was sitting in that thing
Yeah.
like a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's grief. Like you mentioned, you are grieving what you thought this life was going to be, right? Like a good amount of your life was doing it with a person. And so now having to figure out what that looks like in so many different ways, it's a form of grief. And so like any type of grief, you can't just keep it pushing, keep thugging it out, because it's going to catch up to you. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that you are a social worker, but as a dean. I don't feel like I've ever seen that. How does that work? What are your responsibilities? I know you talked a little bit about how you got there. You started off as a school counselor and then you applied for this position. But what would that look like for someone who is maybe interested in adding that to a stop on their journey?
So I think it depends on ultimately like what city you may be in, or like what state you're in. and like what are their requirements. So, obviously some schools, you have to be certified, some schools you don't. So they may want to look into that. As for me, I never thought that dean would come across my table. That was not on my to-do list. But when I looked into it, so currently my role, I oversee student culture, discipline and safety compliance, student pride, assemblies. We are one-to-one iPads, technology 101, as far as like from the students. And one of the main things is the discipline, though. Like sometimes I still feel like I am in school counseling more, like, because I have to sit, there's two sides to every story. Then I have to figure out, like what happened. So it just depends. Honestly, the days are unpredictable. I never know what's going to happen. I'm the chair of the our threat management team. So, any students who we have to do like a threat assessment on for just different things, all the things that they're going through. Students go through a lot where there's like they're trying to harm themselves or they're going through, there's a lot of custody battles, with the school setting and that like affects. So it just depends, but those are the main components that I oversee. Some days look different than others. Some days just like straight discipline. Some days are just straight safety. Some days are classroom support for teachers because I do through walkthroughs to see if they have well-managed classrooms. If someone wants to get there, I would say I would have to see like where they are, like what experience that they have. I think what helped me is when I came from a K-12 school. At that school, I did oversee. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Avid, but it's a program that schools have, such as like, Trio and Upper Bound and Crop and things of that nature. It's just a good instructional tools that teacher, uses. So I overseen that. And I think that's what helped me, like grasp like what works for different teachers, like what doesn't. I was excited when I first started. I still am excited, but it's a lot of work, to put in. And that just goes back to when you asked me about my well-being, about using my time more intentionally after work. I think that's what, helps me going, keeps me going. I don't have any kids. I don't have any pets. So when it comes home, it's just like me and my bed figuring out like, what's the need to be doing that day.
Yeah, girl, you putting out a lot of fires on a daily.
Girl, listen, and some of them do not go down, but we make the best of it.
Yeah, that is a lot of hats. And I mean, you've already talked about maybe a tip is being intentional about how you use your time afterward. But what are some like wellness tips that you would give educators, especially considering you guys are about to be transitioning into like holidays? What are some things that you would give?
So I would say first, the first tip is to figure out like what will the holiday coming up look like for you, right? We know the kids are gonna go off, they're gonna come back maybe even worse. So sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It just depends. But I also think like I always tell my teachers like newsletters, like encourage your families like, hey, we're coming up on, fall break, Thanksgiving break, winter break. Here's are some things, that students can do, X, Y, and Z. I think for me it's also determined like that is a point where like if you're in education, like you need to shut down. Like no grading, no checking messages, like truly take that time because like when I tell you, I've talked to my friends like across the board. I talked to other deans that I met at conferences and people people laugh on TikTok and they laugh on Instagram about like kids not knowing their words, like kids not know. And to me, it's not funny because those are some of the kids that I see every day or I'm working with every day. And I'm like, to be on the side of like social media with education sometimes is like very discouraging because I just feel like it tears people apart from education is not a placeholder job. Let me just say that. You cannot just think you're going to come and stop right here so you can just go somewhere else eventually. So I feel like really shutting down, really remembering why did you enter this field, So I think those are my two main things. And it looks different for everybody. So whether that's traveling, whether that's staying home that whole week, but I also think like preparing your mind is what ultimately helps because you never know what's going to happen, in the school day. And it can be very tiring. So
Yeah.
figure out their like hobbies, what they like. Yeah.
How can parents support you guys as it relates to, even being a little bit more involved in their kids' wellness, or maybe some things that you advise parents to do. Granted, completely being conscious of every kid's arrangements are different. Their caregivers may not be their actual parents. Other things are going on as well. So some people may not have access to different resources, but maybe like considering those things and on a seemingly basic level, what would be some things that you would say for parents to do to support their kids at home and in school?
Honestly, have a conversation with them.
Literally, talk to your child.
Talk, talk to your child.
Not at them.
Not at them, just talk to them. And also education. I don't know when it came about that just like education stops at school.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing is like they just come to school and then nothing is being done home. Like, talk to them. Ask them, do they have homework? Ask them, do they have a quiz today? Ask them, do they have a test today? You know, like, what class are they struggling in? Like, it's not even about like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, or the teacher called me today. You know, like, just genuinely have a conversation with them. And that's where I'm lacking. And I also feel like these kids are getting raised by young kids. And I know that like we're young, but I feel like we're right on that cusp of like, I don't know how to describe it. Like we're right on the cusp of a mentality that like we know what needs to be done and we're going to get it done. But I feel like the more when they all increase grades, I feel like the parenting just goes down, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing. Just please talk to them, have a conversation with them, tell them you love them, ask them, is there anything going on? Is there anything that's bothering them? Is there someone that's bothering them? It's not even more so, but like I would never tell a parent, you know, like how to raise their child. All I'm asking is just like you guys have a conversation with them.
Right. And continue to be their parent, right? Like as you mentioned, and I see it too. Like when kids go to high school or they're going into like these higher levels of education, it's like, well, parent, where are you? You know, and it does seem like there is this theme sometimes of, hey, I need you to help my kid, help them figure it out. I don't know, help them get tutoring with resources, all things. And that's again being completely aware and conscious and sensitive to the fact that life is lifing, life is difficult, right? But when you make that responsibility, there is a level of relationship that you have to continue building. If you feel like you don't trust your child, connect with the dean, connect with the teacher. And I even see that with some of my clients that maybe my client is a parent and they're having some stressors with their kids and there's no judgment to them at all. But I'm like, have you reached out to the teachers and have you called a meeting? They're like, no. Like, okay, so how are you supposed to get some information? Like, we all have different perspectives. There's the dean perspective, there's the teacher's perspective, there's the kid's perspective, and being able to coordinate care and to be on a team, I have seen has been the most helpful and intentional way, because if you're doing something one way, I'm doing something differently at home, the other teacher's doing something differently, then the child's getting a lot of mixed emotions. And respectfully, a child's job is to be a child and have fun. So they're not thinking about like, oh, am I being intentional and all those things?
Yes. And I think they can't always just wait to like parent teacher conference or, you know, like progress reports. Like the sooner, like we all can work together as a team. And then that sometimes I feel like that's what lacks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, not taking away from the fact that we live in America and America's education system is pretty interesting and resources themselves are pretty wild. But I really just believe in asking the question. Like, I love what you mentioned in the beginning. Like, you have no problem reaching out on LinkedIn, you know, giving a cold call. And honestly, that's how I've had my internships in school. That's how I was able to get my job outside of school that wasn't at someone's like regular job. It was a private practice. Like just trying, all the person can say is no. And it's interesting because I've been trying to transition that into potting and having these conversations. Like all they can say is no. Like you can appreciate their story. You can bring them on the pod, or you don't have, or you don't. Like whatever's for you is going to be for you. So
yeah, And I like that. And I think that's one of my biggest things. Like, all they can say is no, or all they can say is like, you weren't hired, you weren't selected, but that doesn't ultimately determine, the traits and the character, the characteristics that you have. And I think a lot that's where like some people fall short in regards to trying to figure out how to navigate. Like, it's very hard to constantly have to change, to constantly have to look up in the world when all of this is going on, but also you're going through like personal things, And that's when I said earlier about like, be okay for like the learning curves. Be okay with trying to figure out what works for you. Everything is not going to work out. I'm still trying to work out how to blog, People may make it seem like, it's all like good and everything, like the page is good, but that's because like trial and error. Same with business and same with you as far as like, wanting to do, like more podcasts or reaching out to people. It's truly a trial and error. And I tell people this all the time, even the people that make the most monies or those people that are like flying rocket ships or, trying to kill cancer, they are literally doing research on a daily basis. They don't know. Like, yes, that is their main source, like they're studying, but ultimately when you truly break down certain things, we're all doing research. We're all trying to figure out what works.
We're all figuring it out.
No matter your position, no matter where you live,
Yes. And I think that is so important to, I heard a few things. One, really stop idolizing what you seem to think that an expert is, because that in itself is not really like a thing. Don't get me wrong, like education, background, being in the field is very important. Like, I'm not saying, and I say this all the time, I'm not saying you just go to someone because they said that they know this information. Do your research, do your checks. But we are all constantly figuring it out, not just from a business and an educational standpoint, but from a wellness standpoint. Every day is so different. There's no rule book to life. We're all experiencing so many different things, going through so many different things, and you really have to allow yourself to go through it. And you take what you need from different conversations like this, right? Like whatever resonates, whatever is in alignment with where you're at right now, then you take what you need and you leave what you don't. Another thing I heard you say is not allow someone's no or not right now to be a reflection of your character or who you are. Just because you weren't selected for said job or said position, or someone told you no for business or interview or whatever the case may be, that does not mean that this is not for you. That just meant that that opportunity wasn't for you, maybe at all, or even in that moment. And so allowing yourself to keep pushing and knowing yourself is going to be important as well. So I love that. So I do want to hold some space for the journey itself, because I want to let our listeners know how to connect with you, how to work with you. I know we talked a lot about parents having those conversations with their kids and reaching out to support, but from kind of like a social, emotional lens, what would you say are maybe some signs that a child or a teen may need some additional support during school transition, whether that's emotional support or academic support? What can parents and guardians and caregivers look out for?
I would say like, I always kind of like put it into three categories. Like there's emotional signs, there are behavioral signs, and then there's like social signs. Being worried about going to school, not want to go into school for like emotional or like mood swings or like different withdrawals. And then like behavior, the more so frequent avoidance or decline in motivation or like pretty much acting out. And then unfortunately socially, like the difficulty of like making friends, the bullying or like the clinginess, like, you see a lot of kids are like clinging to their parents when, they get withdrawal or like just even academically, like obviously dropping grades or dropping performances or trouble staying focused on getting sent out of school. From like the lens, like there's always going to be like patterns of change, and you have to like suddenly notice that shift. Like, that's why I say, please talk to your kids, like please try to engage with your kids. And then like, I feel like as far as strategies, like, it's just different from everyone, like, right? So, and I also think it depends on the grade. We can't have these hard conversations with middle schoolers because when we were in middle school, yes, we understood, we grasped it, like, but they're not on that same level to where I feel like I can have a, you know, conversation with them as if I was in middle school. Like, you truly have to break it down to them from normalizing feelings, normalizing emotions. And you can't just tell them what to do. I feel like it's more so like you have to model for them about what to do. Like, what does this look like? What is a steady morning? You know, like what is a routine? And that's some of the things that are truly lacking. So those are just some couple of ways. And it also depends on like knowing your child, like knowing their likes and dislikes. And
Yeah.
that like that's gonna change.
Yeah, yeah. And it goes back to that relationship, you know, like you said, um, if your child had no problems getting out the car for school and all of a sudden they do, and maybe you're rushing that morning, it can be something as slight as maybe slowing down a little bit instead of saying like, okay, I gotta go, just figure it out. You know, maybe that's a sign that your child is not expressing out loud. And I think what we were alluding to a little bit earlier when you were saying that it's almost like kids are having kids. Um, it's 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 a level of awareness to, I don't want to just say life and just like life wisdom, but when you're figuring it out, you can't help someone else figure it out. And I'm not saying that you can't be in the midst while also being in support, but like raising a child is a thing. Like, we're not watching a dog.
It only gets harder. So
Yes. And we don't even have kids. And this is not coming from a space of like, oh, you don't have kids, so you don't know what you're talking about. But literally being in these conversations and these relationships with these parents and their children and their wellness and their academics, their socializing, their mental health and all the things. It really is like, like you said, what are you doing? What are you modeling? If you're chaotic and you don't have any structure and your life is all over the place, how do we expect the child to want to express themselves or to show up or to take initiative? They are kids. They are figuring this out. One did not ask to be here, and they're also figuring all this out for the first time as well. And so I think really like bringing it back to that. And again, I understand that it's difficult when you're surviving. However, you also have to find some type of space, some type of gap to just show up for your child, show up for yourself. So, the journey. What is the journey? If I come to you, what can I receive? What type of support would I get?
so it's weird because I just like revamped, you know, my bio. I've just been trying to change about like what it's to me, you know, right? So the one word that I can put it as is the one word that I did put in my bio is like an amplifier, you know, advocacy, change, support. I also added additionally some real talk conversations. What I'll also be like trying to start school like reels, just about like real life things, real life world things. You know, like I feel like a lot of people want the realness, but they also want the authenticness within an individual. And I feel like, yeah, I could put out like all these tips and all these traits, you know, like of what makes it. But like when I created the journey, it's funny because like people laugh, and it may be cliche, but it's ultimately like my personal journey, like what I'm going through. Like if I'm changing jobs, you know, like you guys are changing jobs with me. I do have a website, so I'm offering like support and services as far as like resumes, cover letters, you know, students who are going to grad school or like entering the real world. One thing that I am looking to expand is like workshops. So I'm looking into doing more workshops, but ultimately like the journey is creative, it's peaceful, it's aesthetic, it's challenging, but more so like it's the core to what am I doing, you know, like real in my real and personal life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It seems very hands-on, and even it seems like maybe that's a part of like your personality, because even as you are kind of like giving some support and some tips, there's a level of personability that needs to be added, right? Because it is so nuanced. It can look different because we can answer these questions from a high schooler versus a middle schooler, and maybe a high schooler that has a lot more support, maybe some increased confidence, some good grades, compared to maybe a high schooler who's experiencing some bullying or some challenges at home. And so I'm hearing you say like you really get really hands-on and personal with your like clients that you're working with. And I think that's important because we all have very, very different experiences. And like everything isn't a monolith. Like you can't just say, hey, do this one thing and go from there. And that kind of stresses me out. Like, you know, the like fitness journey. How do I lose weight? Oh, you got to go to the gym 5 times a day. Like, first of all, the way my energy works, like the way that I metabolize food, the way that my, you know, body is allowing me to have waste, all those things matter. But when you see these very quick, you know, how-to type of videos, it almost feels sometimes discouraging. Like, okay, well, I did try 5 workouts a week and that didn't work for me. And because it wasn't personalized. So I love that. I will, of course, put all of your information in the show notes so they know how to connect with you. I also love what you mentioned is like, it's also aesthetic because it very much so is. I feel like everything about you very much so gives aesthetic. When's your birthday?
July 3rd.
Got you. You're who?
With Cancer.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, it just gives very aesthetic, and I love that. Anything else that you would like to leave our listeners as it relates to any offerings? You know, you said to look out for some workshops, to ways to connect with you. Again, all of those things will be in our show notes. Yeah. Any tips for any aspiring social workers? Any type of lifestyle tips that you like to give at all?
I would say, if you are an aspiring social worker, don't be discouraged about like what you hear. I just recently connected with a financial social worker. I'm like, okay, girl, like it's money out there, you know, like within the field. So the top tip for that is just like, if it's something that you want to do, ultimately, like you can change, you can do so much, right? Right. We always say like, it's so broad, you know, to be in the field. So I will say, don't be discouraged. Find out what works for you. A lot of people say like, find your niche. Honestly, sometimes your niche changes. My niche has changed several times within this field. Any aspiring, I think it also depends on, you know, like what city you're in and what you want to do in the field. Because, you know, in some cities, social work is supported. And then in some, you know, like it's truly not. So it also depends on like where you are. Feel free to reach out anytime. I'm more than welcome to meet, where it's either a phone call or via Zoom to help support. One thing I always leave people with, of course, the journey looks different for everyone. No matter if you're just starting, if you're restarting, it's totally okay.
Yeah, this was a freeing conversation. I think it's easy to put yourself in a box because maybe you're trying to fulfill this thing, or you feel like, hey, if I go this path, that's going to get me to the, you know, said success that I have. But again, I think the name of your offering and your business is so on brand because it is such a personalized journey, and we're just getting started. We have so much life to live, and we should have goals, but like trying to get it all done by 30 or the said age is not fair because everything makes sense. It's all building on top of each other. These are all different puzzle pieces, and they come together eventually. They come together for a reason. And so I appreciate you for that freedom and that reminder to take up space and don't let nobody's job make you feel like you gotta slave for them.
Nobody.
At all. Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Miss Erykah. I kind of got a nosy last question. What is a financial social worker?
So she does like, she travels like for social workers, and like she basically like asks them like what their budget is, and like basically tailor like their, I guess like their salary. I just met her, so I really don't know. But from what, you know, like when I went through her page and what I've seen, she basically like helps them navigate those who like are wanting to make more money, or like those who feel like they're being underpaid like in the field, and like basically puts like a strategic plan for them in place. She travels about it too. So like I'm like, okay, girl, let me, you know, let me see what this is about.
Yeah. Especially from having the background of social worker, I can only assume that she is knowledgeable about like different grants and resources to help you out. Yeah. Okay.
Network her soon because I'm also trying to find like a business grant, and things of that nature. Because ultimately, like the journey and the goal is to work for myself. So we'll see.
Sure. Yeah. And it'll happen. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes. And I hope that we can have you on as you continue your journey and as you continue to, gather more wisdom to be able to share with both of our communities. So thank you so much, girl.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, my loves, for taking the time out to listen and join the conversation. I really hope you all enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast. If you've done so already and you like the vibes, be sure to write a review wherever you're listening to Shots of Serenity. It truly helps. Also, feel free to email or DM us with any recommendations, questions, comments, or concerns. Our email is shotsofserenity@gmail.com. Our Instagram is shotsofserenity_. And those are all spelled the exact same way it is spelled on our podcast. I'll see you guys next episode. Thanks again for listening. Peace and blessings to you all and your families. And I hope you all have an amazing week.